Okay, so more than you.
Like finger ice cream. I think Brent's our penguin.
Mm-hmm.
I got a new phone, so.
For the agenda?
Well, we have any, like, here's one sheet.
It's not that easy.
It'll take you forever to get everything.
I have to do the.
Well, every time they update my phone, I feel like, what?
They do strange things with my
I'll be right back.
Yeah, strange.
Everything y'all talk about is being recorded. Y'all are live. Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
I'll be back in 5 minutes.
Do we want to wait?
It's now 2:30. I will call to order the meeting of the first ordinance review committee for the city of Woodcreek. We will have a roll call to establish quorum.
Committee member Emma Davenport here. Committee member Karen Duncan. Committee member Carol Wilson.
Here.
Committee member Peggy Wolfe.
Here.
And since we have 3 in attendance, we would have the quorum, or do have the quorum.
Great. May I say something before we start? I am so impressed. I am so impressed with this council and how hard they work and how transparent you are. I've never seen it this well done. Thank you. Thank you.
Amen.
Amen. And that is, I'm sorry, that is one thing, we were having kind of mic issues, so when you do talk into the mic, I'm not even real sure I'm being recorded right now, but, kind of speak directly into it, that way we can get picked up.
Yes, the best is to be, within an inch of it and speaking directly into the microphone. Then it will definitely pick you up. So you have to kind of lean into it. So first on our agenda, so to introduce myself, I'm Councilmember Deborah Hines. I will not be running the meetings in the future. I'm here to facilitate the first meeting. And then from here on, I'll just be your liaison. And so that's just my basic introduction. We'll kind of address more on number 4. But if we could just go around, we'll start over here with Ms. Wolfe, if you would like to introduce yourself to our members here, but also the public. So be sure you're speaking into your microphone, and then the videotape is right
Okay. My name is Peggy Wolfe. I live on Canyon Creek Drive. I've lived in Wimberley for over 30 years. And used to work at City Hall.
there. We did more than just work here.
I'm Carol Wilson. I live at 7 Woodcreek Court. I've lived here 11 years. And I'm retired. I was a newspaper guy or a TV and newspaper guy for 45 years before I retired. So I've always had an interest in good government. I'm second what Peg had to say. I think that previous councils had less interest in having public involvement, and in some ways obstructed the idea that the public would be able to be involved. So I'm glad to see this council taking this kind of proactive approach.
But I don't think any of them were willing to take the workload these guys are doing.
No, I can't speak to that.
If you read the minutes, you can get an idea.
I'm Emma Davenport. I live on Brook Meadow and have been here 5 years. There are 3 generations of my family here in Woodcreek, so it's very important to me and my family that this council and this mayor are inviting the participation of residents. It's a good thing.
All right, well, thank y'all. Ms. Karen Duncan is not here today. She is out of town. She will not be physically present for most of the next couple months. She will, however, try to be as active and engaged as possible. We're working on some options for her to get her, able to participate, whether it's online in our meetings from a computer or just by submitting written comments on our agenda each session. We do have one more member to appoint in the future, so if anybody watching is interested in applying for the ordinance review committee, we would like to have another member, and I believe we also need alternates still. 2 alternates.
No, David Lowe.
Oh, David Lowe is one.
David Lowe is an alternate.
He's just not here today, and there's no
Correct.
setting for him. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so our first order of business beyond introductions is an election of a chairperson and vice chairperson. So this will come from you three. You can nominate a chairperson and a vice chairperson, and then we'll hold a vote on each. I cannot serve in these roles. This will come directly from the members of the committee. And essentially the election of a chairperson, what that person does is what I'm doing right now. And then a vice chairperson would serve in their absence. The other duty a chairperson would have would be to help work with me to establish your agendas. So if you all had agenda items to submit, you would submit them to that chairperson. That chairperson would draw up an agenda draft, and then I would, review it and see if there's anything council had sent you all that needs to be on there, if there's anything council could provide you all as far as information to add to your agenda. So I can just kind of help facilitate the communication between this committee and that board. So if y'all would like to make a nomination for the chairperson.
I'd like to nominate Carol Wilson.
I second that.
All right, we have a nomination of Carol Wilson by Peggy Wolfe and a second by Emma Davenport. We can have discussion about it if you'd like, or we can call
I think he's,
Are you willing?
he's the most qualified.
Yeah, I am.
it. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll call a roll on that, the nomination of Carol Wilson as chairperson. Committee member Emma Davenport. Aye. Committee member Carol Wilson.
Not mine.
And committee member Peggy Wolfe.
All right, thank you. Congratulations, chairperson. I will fill out the rest of this meeting, and then this gavel
Good, thank you.
will be yours. All right, vice chairperson.
I nominate Peggy Wolfe, the vice chair.
I'd be happy to do it.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a nomination of Peggy Wolfe by Emma Davenport and a second by Carol Wilson. We're ready to call roll.
Okay. Committee member Emma Davenport.
Aye.
Committee member Carol Wilson.
Aye.
Committee member Peggy Wolfe.
Aye.
All right, easy peasy. Okay, so number 3 is to review the governing ordinance. Ideally, we have reviewed this in passing since the agenda was released several days ago. Basically, and you are welcome to take these packets home. What this does is sort of outline the responsibilities of this committee. It also goes over the bigger details of how it was formed, any kind of issues if there's a vacancy or removal or resignation. But if you'll turn to section 30.74, duties and meetings, this would be the key information for you all. This group is subject to the Open Meetings Act, so we will be recording each session. We will be taking a vote on any major decisions. And then there are responsibilities outside the meeting for you all to review and take the trainings that have been provided to you. And so we do have to follow those rules of law essentially on our behavior and the way these meetings are conducted. So the Open Meetings Act is briefly discussed at the bottom of this, but if you have any questions about the duties of this committee, or if you'd like to discuss the responsibilities of it, this would be the time to do that on the agenda.
The way I understand this is that the council will ask us to look at an ordinance, and then we will look at it. In what respect? I mean, this would be a proposed ordinance, an ordinance already on the books that is maybe needs to be updated, or maybe needs to be rescinded.
All of the
All of the above.
Yes.
Okay.
And you all would have the ability or the availability to propose ordinances, say if in your work or you stumbled upon something from another city and you were thinking, oh, this is something the city of Woodcreek could consider, you would place it on your agenda, and then it could be sent to council. You could ask council to review things that you all come up with. It's not, the direction and communication goes both ways. it's not a one-way thing. But yes, primarily, this committee was formed to, perform regular reviews of the entire ordinance. So we've already, council has sent that request to you all, for this committee to look at our full scope of ordinance as it stands, and we can review that item on a future agenda, but that is pending in the works. Additionally, if you're looking at the best function of government, in many cases, our ordinances would pass through you all before they were finalized, just to give another review of them. Certainly some things will have to come through you all as it's set up.
Would you sponsor it? If we have something we want to present to council, would you sponsor it?
Yes, that's my role, essentially, is
Would
to
you
take,
have the power to say, I don't think so?
oh, I wouldn't do that. I do not see that as my responsibility. Yeah, I mean, the liaisons have been something, and we can talk about this more later on the agenda, but what I believe is the role of a liaison at this time is just to facilitate communication and to improve our agenda packets, to make sure all the items any board, committee, panel, or council needs going both ways. You know, so we've learned in the past 6 months that essentially sometimes our packets need more. There needs to be better communication, or it would help, hey, if somebody was sitting in that room to answer a couple of questions, city business could have been more efficient or more clear, or maybe a different board could have been felt more informed on the decision they were trying to make. And so my role essentially will be to facilitate that communication. I will not be running the meetings.
Will we be working with all these new committees if they come up with ideas?
So I would say the short answer is yes. All of the committees are sort of, it's like branches on the same hand. The funneling of information will be towards council, and then council will be funneling information out. But say council came up with a new ordinance and sent it to the ordinance review committee. Ordinance review committee could say, we love this. Let's send it over to planning and zoning because this falls under their jurisdiction. And so it goes to planning and zoning gives their input, and then it comes back to council for the final approval, because the council is the governing body of the city. So they essentially have to say yes into law or no. And so if something came to ordinance review and ordinance review said, we don't like this isn't, we want to tweak it, you would have the authority to offer suggestions. You could send them back to council. The ordinance review committee would not be passing anything into law. Y'all are an advisory body. So.
Would it ever be P&Z? Would we need to send things to P&Z?
You could potentially. I don't see why you couldn't. I mean, I don't see why it would have to come back to council again. Because you're just advising. So if you're saying now we need the advice of planning and zoning, they serve in the same role. So yes, I think the bodies could. I don't see any reason with that, or reason not to. This is all a little bit new for us because we've never had an official ordinance review committee. We've had a de facto one, right? So the mayors have previously had members serve on a committee, but that committee was never subject to the Open Meetings Act. They would make recommendations back to the mayor. So it's just a little bit different of a direction. I know other cities have these kind of things, and they function essentially in the same manner I'm talking about today. So.
Do we have, as a committee, the option of doing anything other than what has been outlined as our purpose? What I have in mind is, I personally have always wished for, and I've heard a number of residents ask for, a shortened, simplified, plain English, readily accessible review of ordinances, without all the whereas.
I think that would be very relevant for this committee to generate some sort of simplified resident resource summarizing the ordinances. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and of course, with an asterisk saying refer to the full body, but what kind of things can I get by the time you get through all the whereas, you really don't answer to your question frequently, so.
I mean, I definitely think that falls under your jurisdiction. Let's read this one just out loud into record in case. So the ordinance review committee shall meet to consider amending, creating, and rescinding ordinances that they have been tasked to consider by the city council. To accomplish these tasks, the ordinance review committee shall study, investigate, and develop a recommendation or plan in response to the task given to them by council, and under any deadlines established by the city council. The ordinance review committee should be prepared to provide monthly reports at regular meetings. You know, so it really sounds like you're only working on things council has sent to you in the most fundamental aspects. I believe that you all could send things to council for consideration. I mean, it seems like that's definitely under your jurisdiction, is that you are supposed to be reviewing and looking at our code. And the first thing council has already sent you essentially is a full review of the code. And so I think if you generated some sort of summary document in that process, it could be very helpful.
I think one of the things we look at is the simplification of the language, or the clarification of the language so that people can understand it.
Yes.
I know that we probably have, I'm not thoroughly familiar with all the ordinances for Woodcreek, but I would imagine that they kind of done all of the math in terms of who produced them and for what purpose. And some councils may have passed ordinances that were deliberately obscure. At least I've dealt with councils in other places that did that. That was a tool they used with their lawyers to keep city people from knowing what's going on. I don't look at nefarious stuff under every rock, but I do want clarity and
Clarity, agreed.
Well, I think sometimes if something is confusing, it can lead to those feelings, even if it wasn't the intention.
Yeah.
So bringing simplicity and clarity to our code could go a long way to building trust, even if there were no malintentions at any point. That makes sense.
it reminds me kind of the Jeff, you're too young for this, but at one point the Texas legislature put together a constitutional convention and looked at the Texas Constitution, which is absurdly long, and they boiled it down to something like 238 pages, and then promptly defeated it because it was just too thick.
Yeah. So in my experience of writing ordinances at this point, it's a difficult thing to do, and you all will find it out together here soon, because you really do have to think of all possible problems. And then what I've learned too is to really look at what is the actual goal of this ordinance versus, you know, creating a bunch of rules. Sometimes a bunch of rules get in the way. So if you try to define what is the essential goal of what the city's trying to accomplish, it can really help clarify and keep it to what is essentially needed versus, you know, this really long document. So, and then we have to, as we find even just in reading your ordinance, you know, you can get, if you're too specific, you can get binding, and then it can get in the way of getting good business done too. So, you know, we don't expect perfection from you all. It's an advisory committee, and the point of having a lot of people involved is that you do get a better generation of ideas, and you also, there's more community investment into the process. You know, if people see we've got 6 residents here working on this stuff, it's not coming from one person, you know, it's creates a better investment and trust. But we're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. We can just do it again. All right, so unless you all have any other concerns or questions about our governing ordinance for this committee, I'm going to move on to the next item. I'm not trying to rush you all, but the intention of this meeting is to be brief, just to get through the introductions, and then we'll get to business on it.
I appreciate the hour meeting time.
Oh, good.
We only have an hour because there's another meeting after.
It's
Yeah,
good.
that's good.
Did you have a comment?
A comment?
Yeah.
I have lots of comments, always, but not this time.
Okay. All right, so on number 4, it says introduction to council liaison and description of group roles and responsibilities. I believe you sort of briefly touched upon this. Again, I'm your liaison. I am here to assist you all. I will not be voting. I will not be stating my opinion on matters beyond anything that is helping to clarify your mission as it pertains to what council has requested of you, or vice versa. You know, I can represent you all to council and assist you in your regular reports, or, you know, my responsibility is essentially to be here at the meetings and be a witness to them and to help represent this body at council.
Will you always be here?
I intend to.
Good.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Unless there's yeah, I do have 3 children.
Yes.
But yes.
Yeah.
Are there any questions about
Well engaged.
the group roles or responsibilities in general? I would, okay, I would like to comment one more time on what you asked earlier, Peg, about would I ever speak against something this committee has brought to council? So I want to be careful about that statement or defining these roles. My job, as I see it, or any of our liaisons, is to facilitate communication, and I am not to influence you all in your decision process. And if I represent you all on council, my goal is to be very careful about keeping that line, saying this is what the ordinance review committee has stated. Now, if something comes to council, and as a council member, I might have opinions or things to share as a council member in that role, and will they at times contradict something this committee has come up with? It is possible, you know, because I'm not here to influence you all. I do respect your opinions, and I don't really see that coming up, if that makes sense. Because I'm not running this meeting, this is your meeting, so you all might produce work, and that work comes to council, and I might have more to add, or, you know, oh, I would actually like to adjust this, or, does that make sense?
I think we want your input.
Okay.
I do too.
Well, I will answer any questions as they come up. I just wanted to be clear about
Yes,
this.
that one track.
How about the distinctions between the role of liaison versus a voting council member sitting on council? Because there's a little bit different responsibility there. So the ordinance review committee produced a document, and, you know, in this meeting, we're like, this is great, this is great. It goes to council. We receive 50 comments saying, don't pass that. You know, I'm gonna have to listen to the public on that one. So yeah, I just wanted to be careful. I don't want to make any promises. So, all right. Is that clear? Are we good? Any other questions? Okay, so now we need to establish, it says, discussion and take appropriate action on our future meeting schedule. So we're going to establish when you all want to meet, at what time, what day. You all might have input on what would be best for the city schedule.
I mean, not a Wednesday of the council meeting.
Okay. So ideally off of Wednesday. Any other day of the week?
I couldn't do Monday morning or Thursday morning.
Okay.
And I have a commitment Friday mornings from 10 to 11, but otherwise.
Afternoon seems better.
The only time I'm not available is, Wednesday around lunchtime and Thursday morning.
Monday morning.
Yeah, well, it's 7 o'clock on Monday.
We're not meeting that early. Sorry. I'm calling that. Okay, so it sounds like Tuesdays are the
Thursday afternoon
This
sounds
is a good time.
Tuesdays at 2:30. This works for everyone? 2:30?
Yeah,
Yes,
this is
2:30
fine
works
with
for me.
me.
You want to say monthly or weekly, or
I say monthly.
so
You can always call additionally.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, whatever you
yeah,
want.
what do you think?
Yeah, we can start that way.
so do you want to say like the first?
Tuesday of the month?
That's fine with me.
Yeah, doesn't make any difference.
What would that be next month?
That would be June 7th.
That's good for me, Helen. Emma, how about you?
Yes.
Peggy?
And
All right, let's
2:30.
look at that, 2:30 on the 7th. Go ahead and put that down.
We may see it as a big workload and we want to do it maybe every other week.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever.
What a great committee. Jeez.
All right, yes.
This council has set the bar high as far as workload goes.
Yeah, no problem.
I've never seen maybe one or two people on council, but not everyone.
Yeah.
Just working their tail off.
Thank you. All right, so we do not have anything else on the agenda and there is no, future business option. So I'm assuming we cannot talk about future business. So if you have any things sort of like we talked about today that you would like to see on the agenda, the procedure would be to reach out to your chairperson and he can work on forming the agenda. So some of the recommendations you all made today would be great things to email Carol.
Council member, are you talking about getting it on the council agenda?
No, on the
No,
agenda
on
for these meetings, so in the future, all meetings, if you're to discuss an item, it has to be stated here. And then we have to be careful about whether it says discussion or, and take appropriate action or just discussion. Discussion means no vote can be held and no action can be taken. But if it says take appropriate action, then you can, make a decision. Send it to P and Z, send it back to council, throw it in the garbage, no.
Send it to staff.
Yeah, send it to staff, it's another option they love.
Does that mean waste paper basket or?
Yeah, no comment. All right, so unless there's any other business today, I'll adjourn the meeting at about 5 till 3.